to him. That which is good is rewarded of 10 amounts or more to 700. So there's this da'af, this increase from 10 to 700. And you can take that literally as 10 to 700, or our ulama have mentioned that it can also be taken figuratively, that it's more than the deed itself. And then Allah Ta'ala, the Prophet said, called Allah Azza wa Jal, this is a hadith Qudsi, إِلَّا السِّيَامَ فَإِنَّهُ لِي وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ, except for fasting, that it belongs to me. It's mine and I reward it. My servant has set aside his passion, his food and drink for my sake. For the fasting person, there are two joys: the joy when he breaks it, and the joy when he meets his Lord, Allah Azza wa Jal. And the odor that emanates from the mouth of the fasting person is more pleasant to Allah than the pleasant scent of musk. And that was the narration. And then a variation was, every deed is belonging to the son of Adam except fasting, it belongs to me. And that's a short version of it. And then in Sahih Bukhari, every deed, or to every deed there is kifara, or there is a recompense for it, kifara. But fasting belongs to me and I reward for it. So that's another version of it. And another version, every deed of the son of Adam, to him there is a kifara, and a payment or amount that is given for it, except fasting. And fasting is mine and I reward it. So these various hadith narrations then from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are really indicating the unique status of this act of worship. And it then behoves us to take seriously this hidden worship, where the external signs of it don't exist, and yet it has to be properly intentionalized for us. That is, we make the intention for it, so that this action which is hidden operationalizes or becomes such that it is something which we give to Allah as a secret act of worship. Even though we're all fasting, at Ramadan together, and we all know what we're doing, it's like our community secret, the secret we carry on with each other. And before I've spoken about this issue of fasting, and I have wondered, why is it such a unique and special act of worship with Allah? And it really goes down to, Wallahu alam, what you're doing, and that you're abstaining from, as was in the fiqh class downstairs, and I hope that was covered with the women up here, and since we're all supposed to be 16 and above here in this room right now, because it was an adult or young adult session. The three things that are principally the imsak, or the abstinence, which occurs during the time of Fajr until sunset, are principally on three things. And that's food, drink, and sexual intercourse. And it's these three things, and I've mentioned this a number of talks, I'll repeat it again because some of you have not heard this discussion like this, so it might be your first time, so you have a good ear listening, that when we are fasting, we're taking upon these unique qualities, of I would call them divine qualities, and I don't mean that in a theologically negative manner, but we are clothing ourselves, as our scholars have mentioned about this akhlaq ilah, these qualities of God. And so we should have virtues of mercy, compassion, generosity. For example, there are hadith here, when you look at the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the descriptions of the Prophet ﷺ, and you go through this book, this long section here by Ibn Rajab, and he talks about, if I remember where it was here, the aspects of the Prophet ﷺ And he mentions here of the Jude, or the generosity of the Prophet ﷺ, and how the Prophet ﷺ, during the month of Ramadan, he was so generous. He was selfless, and it's mentioned here in these narrations that no one would ask him for anything except he gave it to him. ما سئل رسول الله شيئا فقال لا. The Prophet was never asked something, he never said no. And he said once to Jabir, لو جاءنا مع البحرين لقد أتيتك هكذا وهكذا هكذا وقال بيده جميعا. Imam Jabir narrates that the Prophet said that if the wealth of Bahrain, so that was a Christian land, that was a land that was the Muslims conquered. It was one of the first of the lands that the Muslims received jizya, which is the payment the Jews and Christians would give as they lived under Muslim rule. If I was giving this and this and this, and then he indicated with his hands, the Prophet, I would give it. That was his nature. So the Prophet wasn't niggardly. He wasn't stingy. And because this is not the divine nature. The divine nature is to be giving. The divine nature is to be plentiful and to constantly pour out. And it's just from the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal exists. I was really reading a beautiful lesson. I was listening to a theological discussion today. They're not Muslim. It's a Christian. It's a Catholic seminary. It was a really beautiful philosophical discussion on causality and how one thing has to exist for something else to exist, and talking about the necessity of having something which is self-sufficient, that it doesn't need anything else. And of course, that's a discussion on Allah. And we would say that from the Muslim theological perspective, qa'im bin nafsihi, that he self-subsists by his own nature. He exists. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his fundamental nature, is that he exists. He has being. And yet our being here, sitting here, and everything about you, everything about you, everything that makes you what you are, everything that you know, once wasn't. And so it's the generosity of Allah Azza wa Jal that you exist. The outpouring of the quality of Allah as self-being, or self-subsisting, or existing by himself, not needing anything to be, that he allows anything other than him to exist, is an act of generosity. It's a divine outpouring. It's a tajalliyat, an outpouring of Allah. Let alone you're talking about the small things that make up your life. It is all of the fadl of Allah. Hada min fadl Rabbi. You see that above the grocery store. You walk in or whatever someone's business is. And it's always like that. They only think about that. They think about their source of income. And they're not thinking about anything else beyond that. The tree outside or the bumblebee over there. Hada min fadl Rabbi. All of that is of the fadl, the generosity. What is fadl? It's that thing which when you fill a cup up, it flows over. That's the fadl. That's fadl. It's not the thing in the cup. It's when you fill it and it spills out. That's fadl. That's what it means in Arabic. So Allah is this absolute generosity that He's given us. You see. And so you have to see things like that. And you have to train yourself. So you have this act of worship that all you have to do is not eat and drink. And don't engage in sexual activity during a specific time. But it's those things that define Allah as Allah is. Because Allah doesn't eat and drink. Qul huwa ahad, Allahu samad. So say Allah is one. Right? Because this is, those of you know the tafsir of that is that the pagan Arabs were standing around, some of them around Mecca, and they were talking about their gods. And then Muhammad walked by and he said, Ya Muhammad, ansib lana rabbak, or Ya Muhammad, describe your Lord to us. And then the Prophet didn't say anything, and Allah gave him Surat Ikhlas. Qul huwa ahad. Say, He, God, is one. Allahu Samad. And I've discussed this before very quickly. The Samad was, the tribal man. Who's Samad in the community? He's the chieftain. He's got 27 sons from 8 wives. And they're all behind him with their swords in their hands, and each son's got 100 camels. But since the father is like the head, the chief, he has power over all of his sons and all of the 100 camels, or 2,700 camels, let's say. And he's got the storehouse of grain. And he can go to his sons and take all that stuff and they'll listen to their father. And when the needy person in Mecca comes to so-and-so, this man who's a samad, this man of independent wealth, and they, I help me, I'm poor. Here, oh poor lady, take this. And so-and-so is threatening me. 2 sons, you go. Hey, Amr Zayd, you go protect that man. He can do this. He was samad. That's how the Arabs in Mecca understood samad. And Allah said that he was samad. So it resonated with the idea of power and generosity. But this samad isn't born. Not born of woman. It wasn't born. And he's not like anything. And so ikhlas was this public declaration of a counter movement against the power structure of Mecca. And that is how Allah is. He wasn't born. He's independent. He's ghani, mustaghna an kulli shay, free of everything. And doesn't need food and drink. Like the idols, like you go shopping down to a shop down in little Chinatown and you go into some store and they've got a little Buddha there with some mango or something in front of it. Or an incense, a mango piece, and a piece of orange and a little fat Buddha. And they end up throwing it away at the end of the day because that Buddha didn't eat anything. Right? Didn't do anything. But they're feeding it. This is not the creator of the heavens and the earth. So, when you fast, you're suspending these fundamental, basic qualities that without them in this realm, in this world, you need them to exist. For example, you're not to not eat to what harms your body. Right? It's haram to not eat enough that you can't get out of bed. It's haram to fast or abstain from food where it keeps you from offering acts of worship. You can't stand for your prayer. You're so weakened. It's haram not to eat. And yet it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is the one who is going to cause you to die. And He's the one who's going to give you life. That's theologically correct. But you're not allowed to interfere with the asbab, the means, the phenomenal means, the means of these things. You see, you're not allowed to interfere with them towards yourself or for anyone else. It's haram for you to starve your cat. It's haram for you to starve your dog. You could say, but Allah caused it to die. He's a mumit. He's the slayer. He brings death. But you're not allowed to interfere with the means, the phenomenal means that you can measure, you can see. And so yet when you're fasting, you're suspending these things. Individually, I need food and water to drink, and he needs food and water to drink, and he needs food and water to drink, and she needs food and water to drink, and food and water to eat. Live, not drink, right? Sorry. Right? So as individuals in the community, we each need food and drink. But as a species, we need sexual intercourse. Without sexual intercourse, there are no human beings. No more. So that's where you suspend the individual need phenomenally of food and drink. God doesn't need them to be. And collectively as a species, you suspend it for a period of time. Sexual intercourse. So as a species, so without these three things, you go extinct. You're dead. Individually and as a species. And so you suspend these things for the sake of Allah. You suspend them. You don't engage with them. And of course, I mentioned this before, that's paradisial. When you go to Jannah, there's food and drink in Jannah and everything else, but not because you, in the realm here, if you abstain from it, you would die. No, there's no death. So if you stop eating and drinking in Jannah, it's not going to kill you. You'll still be alive. Because that's an ajr, a reward. It's pleasure there. So having said that, then this fasting for Allah is a very secret thing you give to Him. His quality is He's al-batin, He's the hidden one. So Allah is al-zahir, He's the manifest one. So when it comes to acts of worship, we manifest certain things. They're manifest, we do them publicly. We don't keep them secret. Public prayers, the congregation prayer is a public prayer. It's not done in private congregation. Jummah prayer is a public event. We learned in fiqh, right? You cannot have a Jummah prayer where everyone in the community can't come. You can't have a Jummah prayer in a gated community, for example. Anyone could just come to it. It has to be open to anyone. It has to be zahir, public. Right? Hajj is manifest. It's public. Zakat, you should announce you're paying your zakat. You don't have to pay zakat in secret. You should announce it, because those who know you're paying it, they can come get some of it because it's their haqq, and others who haven't paid it yet will know to remind them to do it. But if you give to charity, which is non-zakat, which is non-obligatory, you should do that in secret. Because that's one of the 7 people, Yawm al-Qiyamah, in the shade of the throne, are what? It's the man who gives with his right hand, so his left hand doesn't know. And that's not zakat. That's private charity. Okay? And so now, but there's one, the shahada is public. You have to declare your shahada. People have to hear it. These are zahir, manifest. But one is secret. It associates Allah's al-batin, the hidden. And yet Allah's al-batin, from a spiritual perspective, is more excellent than that which is manifest. You know, if you study classical spirituality, if you focus on Allah's name al-zahir, that's considered this level of a type of spiritual activity. But when you focus on Allah as al-batin, it's considered a more higher type of spiritual focus. Because that's associated with the angels. It's associated with angels. The al-malakut, the angelic realm. And so it's different. That's different for you. And you are associating with angels when you fast. Because angels are genderless, and angels don't eat and drink. So it's engaging. But you see, the difference between you and an angel is that you also have a prescription. We mentioned this before. What does that mean? Allah didn't tell the angels, don't do something. Allah just gives the angels commands. Do. But there's never a don't for angels. But humans have do's and don'ts. And that's why humans excel in avoiding the don'ts. The things that you're told not to do is where you excel. Right? So you excel in avoiding the harams, things that are prescribed for you. Because angels don't have those. So you can get one on the angels on that one. What did the Prophet say? What I forbid you to do, avoid it. He didn't give you an option. مَا نَحَيْتُكُمْ عَنْهُ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. What I have told you to avoid, do it. وَمَا أَمَرْتُمْ بِهِ فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. And what I've commanded you to do what you can. You're capable of your capacity to carry it. Right? So angels have these commands and no prescriptions. So in Ramadan, you are forbidden to do certain things. And because you abstain from those things because they're forbidden for you, you will excel in them. Because they're not prescribed for you. But not just things that are prescribed. It's not like Allah is saying don't take interest. See, you don't have to have interest to have an economic system. To trade. Right? Allah tells us not to steal. But you don't. But you can get. There are other means to acquire an object, to acquire a possession. That's not stealing. But you have to have food and drink. You have to have that. It's so fundamental. So on the core of your being, on the core that defines your creatureliness, your created nature, the core of it, the most basic, crude, rudimentary part of you, suspend it. Do not engage in it. But instead, engage in angelic things. Be like angels. Worship much. What do the angels do? They're constantly making tasbih, subhanallah. They're saying alhamdulillah, right? That's all they do. So what are you doing during Ramadan? A lot of that. Right? You're bringing that quality in. You see angels, they're falling down. They're falling down, worshiping Allah, prostrating. Well, there's a lot of that in Ramadan too. A lot of Taraweeh. Huh? You're engaging in these angelic qualities. And so Ramadan is a very special time for you. But we have to remind ourselves, as the Prophet ﷺ warns us, that, when you fast, there are many things that, it's like, how many people fast and all they get out of their fasting is hunger and thirst. So if you're just fasting from food and drink, whatever, you're just not eating. But then anything else beyond that, it's all it's about. I'm not eating and drinking, and that's it. Then that's all you're going to get from that is hunger and thirst. Jo and Atish. Hunger and thirst is all you'll get out of it. Man sama Ramadan iman ihtisaban. Ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbihi. He who fasts Ramadan imanan, in full faith and conviction and expectation of reward, all of his previous sins are forgiven. Man qama Ramadan, another hadith, who stands in ritual prayer, means the Qiyam al-Layl, who stands in prayer. And the same thing, with faith and conviction, of expectation of reward, his sins are forgiven. But Rubba Sa'im, Hadhu min Siyami, Jawatish, many a fasting person, all they get, their hadh. What's your hadh? It's what you get out of it. What you get out of it. What you acquire out of it. What you get out of it? Jawatish, hunger and thirst. Rubba, and the Prophet said, Rubba Sa'im, many fasting people do that. Many. So Rubba here is a harf, it means many a. Many a fasting person. So we have to remind ourselves, are you among the many or among the minority? Get that. You ask him, what do you want to be? That requires you to start thinking, about, this fasting has got apparently go beyond just not eating and drinking. So, we've been having these classes with the kids here. It's fasting of the eye, and fasting of the tongue, fasting of the ear. So in Ramadan, you need to shut down. You got to shut down. Put away the iPad. Put away the tablet. Put away the Facebook. Unless you absolutely need it for something necessary, put it away. Put those things away. If they're not beneficial, it's against you. Remember the Prophet said, every word of the son of Adam is for him or against him. Everything you say is for you or against you. So something you'll say, it's either going to be in your favor or it's going to be against you. And lahu, frivolity, is not a quality of the people of Jannah. Allah says. And you're not hearing it any laghiyah. In Jannah there is no frivolous conversation in Jannah. So the people of Jannah, and if you're trying to be like the people of Jannah by fasting, by mirroring that, these blessed people, there's no frivolousness. So Ramadan is a time to shut down. Shut down. The Netflix is gone, the Hulu is gone, TV is gone. All that driving in the car with the radio blasting gone. Got to put it away. Because this is a time you're fasting of the eyes, fasting of the ears, fasting of the tongue, backbiting. Very well known hadith. Without me going through the text here, just what things I was reading and things that are well known. The women, these two women were fasting, and these women were fasting, and they were really exerting themselves in fasting. And then the Prophet said, "Bring them to me," and he made them vomit. And one woman vomited up blood, and one woman vomited more meat, pieces of meat. Think of like a cat food can. You're dumping out chunky cat food. This woman vomited like that, and then the Sahaba were surprised, and it's like this is because they were backbiting people when they were fasting. And we talked on Sunday we talked with the kids, what does backbiting mean? So I recommend you need to look into that, because that's a big problem. So backbiting. Some of the girls who were here on the weekend school, the summer school, Oh, her food is too salty, backbiting her food. His car isn't washed, backbiting his car. His car is messy, backbiting his car being messy. His juba's too long, backbiting his juba. It's not about saying something, like this is simple stuff I'm talking about. I'm giving up, this is backbiting like that. Let alone, he's a pig, he's evil, he's a cruel man, his heart is hard, his prayers are incorrect, his beard's wrong, he sounds funny when he talks, his ears are too big. She's annoying. Her daughter's a brat. That's backbiting. How many of those things go on every day in conversation? Well, that's going to corrupt your fast. It's not going to make it invalidate it. It's going to corrupt it. And you're like those two women who should vomit and get out, the morsels, the meat and the blood. So silence is a virtue in Ramadan. If you want to talk directly, talk right, and try to control it. Of course, if you're at work and stuff like that, you have to talk, but be careful, because it's Ramadan. You're at home with your kids, be careful. Kids with their parents, be careful. Husbands and wives, be careful. Remember, it was a man, a chasim. What's that? The guy who wants to come fight you? He wants to argue with you? What are you supposed to say when he comes? Remember what he's supposed to say? You still know that? Come on. Anasa'im, I'm fasting. Someone wants to fight with you, argue? What do you say? Anasa'im, I'm fasting. We be doing that every morning. I'm Anasa'im. You go around everywhere around you. I'm fasting. Because it's coming all around you. All around you, everywhere. Is that true? Probably. Think about it. This is the seriousness of Ramadan. It's serious because it's a hidden thing. And you want to clothe yourself in godly qualities. And God, it's serious. And He's generous. So, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أجود الناس. And this is from Ibn Abbas and Bukhari Muslim. And so he said, he was the most generous ajwad. He was jawad. He was generous. Right? وكان أجود ما يكون في رمضان. And he was more generous in Ramadan. حين يلقاه جبريل يدرسه القرآن. Jibril would come to him, and Jibril and he would have a dars. They would be back and forth with Quran. وكان جبريل يلقاه في كل ليلة من رمضان. And Jibril would come to him every night in Ramadan. فيدرسه القرآن, and they would have a reading of the Quran together. So the Rasul يلقاه جبريل أجود بخير من ريح مرسلة. And the Prophet, when Jibreel met him, he was more generous in good than a plentiful breeze, a rain, of clouds that bring rain in the desert. He was more generous than that. This is the Prophet ﷺ. It's the month of self, and that goes back to Allah. Allah is generous. He's generous and constantly giving. And so the Prophet ﷺ displayed this quality. That was his nature. But in this month of hiddenness for God, it becomes more manifest. Because this is a month for Allah Azza wa Jal. Mentions here that when Ramadan comes, Yunadi fihi munadin, a caller, an angel calls out. Yunadi fihi munadin, calls out, Ya baghi al-khair, halumma. Oh, you people who are seeking good, come Come, rush to it. Halummu. Rush, come, it's here. That's the same thing the angels say. Halummu, that's what angels say when they find someone doing dhikr. And the angels travel the earth, and they're looking at people who are reading Quran or doing dhikr, and when they find them, they say, Halummu, they say, come here. And those angels, it's like fire ants. Maybe bad memory. They just come, bam. There they are, all of a sudden, on everything. That's what the angels are. Put a little sugar out, those little ants come, and they're all on it. Takes one to find it. He leaves his little pheromone trail, and bam, they're all there before you know it. Well, the angels, that's their pheromone trail. Halummu, they come, they find it. Bam, the angels are there. It's Ramadan, right? And he who seeks evil, cease, they say. Cease. Right? وَلِلَّهِ أُتُقَاءُ فِي مِنَ النَّارِ. And Allah Most High has people He is freed from the fire. And He says it's every night in Ramadan. Every night the angels call it this way. Every night the angels are saying this. Come to the good, come to the good. And cease the bad. Allah has freed people. They're the people who are bound and chained, the slaves. They've been freed from the fire. And every night He says this. This is the angels, and angels say this every night. So obviously, that's good company. Strive for that. In a weak narration from Ibn Adi, that's been raised to Anas, Allah ukhbirukum bi ajwad al-ajwad. Shall I not inform you who is the most generous of the generous? Allah. Ajwad. He is the most generous of the generous. وَأَنَا أَجْوَدُ بَنِي آدَمَ. I am the most generous of the sons of Adam. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. وَأَجْوَدُهُم مِّن بَعْدِي. And those who are the most generous after me, رَجُلٌ, a man. عَلِمَ عِلْمًا فَنَشَرَ عِلْمَهُ. Is the man who gains knowledge and then spreads it. يُبْعَثُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ ummatan wahida, and he'll be raised as one ummah yawm al-qiyamah. وَرَجُلٌ جَادَ بِنَفْسِهِ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And the man who expends himself in the path of God. These people come after that, according to this narration. There's got a weakness to it, but there it is. It's a hadith of a virtue. Okay, this is a virtue. So it's not fabricated, but it's a virtue. So take it to heart. So there's this issue of and there are other narrations here about the Prophet's excellent qualities. Alhamdulillah. So in this month then, why is it then there's this increase? So narrations that one, it's sharaful zaman, there's a nobility in the time. Anas said, "Afdalu sadaqati sadaqatu fi Ramadan." The best sadaqah is the sadaqah given in Ramadan. That doesn't mean you're zakat, by the way, unless you just happen to have proper zakat calculation. Some people give their zakat for some reason in Ramadan. They think Ramadan is a zakat month. That's wrong. It only would be your zakat month if 1 year before in a Ramadan, the previous year's Ramadan, you actually met your nisab, and then you have to calculate, wait 1 year later, and it happens to be in Ramadan, and you check it. You may not actually meet that amount until maybe a different time, a year later, and until you get it, then you calculate it. So don't just think Ramadan is a month of zakat, but it's a month of charity. So keep that in mind. Of this time, those who are fasting and who are standing in prayer and remembering Allah as acts of obedience, that they have special attention from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's divine inayah, divine attention. So you want that. So seek that in this month. In your dua, in your standing in ritual prayer, you stand up for these things. Be jealous of them. It's hard at times to do that. There are a lot of things that distract you: family, school, work, friends, car, whatever it may be, the nice weather. But you be mindful. This is a month that, in America, it's like, who knows? No one knows what's going on here. We're Muslims not eating. No one's paying attention. The world's going on. That 1960 will be just as busy in Ramadan. Back and forth every day. Just a few hungry Muslim drivers in it. More. That's it. It's not like it's Turkey with things. Hoshgal and Bir Ay Sultan. Welcome the Sultan of the other 11 months. Written on the blue mosque in giant letters, flashing in Ramadan. They're going to see that here. No cannons going off at iftar time. Like I heard in Istanbul. Nothing like that. No one's going to know. Maybe you'll get a CBS Evening News mention. Right? Maybe. Might be maybe a Universal Unitarian Church might say, Happy Ramadan for our Muslim brothers and sisters. Maybe you'll get that, but not the Baptist church down the street. They're not going to put any sign up for Ramadan. No one's going to care. Who's going to holler about Ramadan? Except the news, it's the month of Holy Ramadan and Muslims are still fighting in Iraq. Something like that. That'll come out. So there you go. So we're lucky no one knows about it. Because it's even more hidden. It's even more hidden. Okay? So take advantage of that. In this month, and I want to do this, I think, I don't want to do that, but I don't know if the first night of Ramadan, whichever night it is, or maybe I'll do it this Friday for my Jummah Bayan. Okay, I'll do it then. So if you happen to show up for Jummah Bayan, I'll cover that. Ramadan has, 3 divisions. So one part is, أن شهر رمضان شهر يجور الله فيه على عباده برحمة ومغفرة وعتق من النار. So this is the month when Allah shows generosity to His believing servants. First with mercy, then with forgiveness, and then with freedom from the fire. Those are the 3 divisions of the month. Mercy, forgiveness, and then release from the fire. Well, and let alone Laylatul Qadr. Okay? Allah Ta'ala yarhamu min ibadi rahmah. Allah is the most merciful of the merciful. The Prophet ﷺ said, Innama yahmullah min ibadi rahmah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows mercy to those of His companions, His servants who are the merciful ones. This is what your month should be. Mercy, mercy, mercy. Generosity, generosity, generosity. Give, 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 and be kind. This is the month of that. Not just not eating and drinking and stuff like that. Anyway, any questions on anything? Am I done talking? Am I done?
There's 20 minutes.
I got 20 more minutes?
If you'd like.
You're draining me. Any questions on anything? Please ask questions. I like questions. The Prophet said to a man, قال ذكر لي رجل فقال ذلك لا يتوسد القرآن. A man was mentioned. I should be. We'll call ذكر النبي رجل. The Prophet a man was mentioned to him, and he said that one doesn't use the Quran as a pillow. Yani, don't make the Quran a pillow in Ramadan. I.e., don't let it sit there like a pillow. That means engage with it. So what does that mean? Engage with it. Well, you'll be hearing it if you're praying in this masjid. Alhamdulillah. You'll be hearing. I don't know how fast the qiraat will be. It'll be my first time in this masjid for Ramadan with the Taraweeh, so we'll see. But if it's inshallah a good pace, but it's going to be like. That's what it's going to be. That's what you're going to be hearing. Okay, so that's great. You're in the prayer, but when you're not in the prayer, You need to take time out with that book of Allah, and you need to spend time with it. Read an English translation. If you can't read the Arabic, then read a translation of it. There's good in that if your intention is there. Don't worry about that. You know? Do things like that. Engage with it. Have curiosity about it. Yes, dear?
What does it mean when the shaitan are locked up? Does everywhere get waswasa still? What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, so, when the shaitan are locked up, well, they're locked up. So then you're going to find out. All I can say is you'll find out. You can't blame him anymore. You'll find out in Ramadan where your heart and your mind is, because all those thoughts that come, it's you. Now remember this, Allahu A'lam. I mean, I'll say this generally. If your karina, everyone has a karina, the Prophet, and we all have a jinn, right? We call it a karina. It's like that one's attached with you, right? It's like your companion, right? Now, when your karina, let's say, in your bosom buddy, Mr. Shaitan, like Mr. Smith, is with you, and then he just happens to be gone. If you guys are really good friends and like really into each other, then you'll still be carrying on like you were probably when he's gone, because it's habit for you. Don't be surprised that things just don't dissipate in Ramadan, because it's your habit. And that's one of the worst things you can ever have, is where you do something, it becomes a habit. So Ramadan is a good time to break habits. If you're talking about the New Year's resolution kind of thing that people make at New Year's Eve, this is the time to make the New Year resolution, because you've got 30 days, or 29, to make a resolution. That is to resolve to change. And how do you change? Is you take something which is not your custom, and then start doing it consistently till it becomes your habit. And when it becomes your habit, it's your habit. It stays with you. It's your adah. So how can you do that? Well, pick out some things you need to work on, probably in Ramadan, and work on them until at the end of Ramadan you just carry through, because it's what you do now. So that's my advice. So shaitans are locked up, so now you can find out what's going on with you. So, then you'll find out more about yourself. And at the end of the day, remember, jinn can only whisper, they can't dictate. Waswasa is just that. It's flimsy. It's whispering, it's not, it's not a decree. It's not a firman that's written, bam, there it is.